Welcome back to Sheet Metal is Fun. Today we're going to make a box with a hinge and a lid and a latch. These tool holders are going to be on the next lesson, so don't pay any attention to these. Today I just want you to look at the box. We're going to make a box with a lid and a latch and a handle. Let's go on inside and get started. Don't look, no peeking. Welcome back to Sheet Metal is Fun. We're going to make a box with a lid, a hinge, a handle, and a latch. We're going to call this the gardener's helper because we got gardening tools in here. But this could be a crafter's helper. It could be a beekeeper's box. But tonight we're just going to make the box and with the lid and the handle and the latch. So there's so much going on here that pretend you didn't see these things. Tonight we're going to make the box, and then we're going to make a separate lesson for the tool holders. So I'm going to set these over here out of the way. And since it's the gardener's helper, look at this. It's got gloves and a cyclamen and a spare piece of paper that says don't look. Let's leave our cyclamen over here. Isn't that beautiful? Look at it, matches the color of the tools that we're going to use in the next lesson. There's so much going into this box that we're going to make it in 2 lessons. So let's start off with our box. And the first thing I want to show you is anytime we start a new project, we have to make a couple of decisions. The number one decision is the customer always deserves the best finished product we can give them. They're going to pay us a lot of money, which is my favorite part, and in turn for a lot of money, they're going to get a lot of value and they're going to get something they can be proud of. So one of the things I want to do, come over here and look at this high-tech list I've made out, hon. Anytime we start a new project, number one, we want to make sure that the finished product is the best that we can make it. Number two, we want to make sure that the way we fabricate it is easy for us. Not only is it easy, it has to be possible because there are times when you could cut something out and then not be able to bend it up. And I have an example of that I'm going to show you. Also, we always want to consider the least amount of waste. So with that in mind, this is 10-inch by 8-inch, and it's also 10 inches tall. So that is a 10 by 8 box, and it's 10 inches tall. The way we made this in a wrapper style. Here's how we made our box. Here's our 10 by 8. There's another 10 and the other 8. We made it wrapper style. It's easy to fabricate, and there's a lot less waste. This is the lid, and the bottom is so easy, I didn't even make a drawing for the bottom, I don't think. No drawing for the bottom. So this is called wrapper style. But first, in order to show you how to make it right, I want to show you how to make it wrong. So let's do that. Let's move this over. Pretend you can't see any of these. That's the next lesson. There's plenty on tonight's lesson. So this is a 10 by 8 and a 10-inch deep box. our first consideration is to always make sure we give the customer the best finish. And with that in mind, look at that corner, what a nice finish the corner is. There's nothing sharp on it. We have a nice corner here. We have a coffin lock here. I'm going to show you how to make the coffin lock. And another nice corner here. And the bottom is recessed. So if this is going to be a gardener's helper, whenever you set it on a pile of dirt, it's going to register itself. And in case you do set it on a rock, it'll be a lot less tippy. It'll be more likely to sit still for you while you're doing your gardening. So this is a wrapper style. I'm going to show you the wasteful and difficult way to make it. And this is an example, and it also maybe it'll answer a couple of questions for you. So this is 10 inches wide, 8 inches deep, and 10 inches tall. So that's what I've cut out here. I'm going to try to hold this in a way you get the least amount of glare. 10 inches wide, 8 inches, and then 10 inches tall. What we're using tonight is 26 gauge galvanized. So we're going to take our big snips. And remember, this is just an example of how not to do it, because sometimes you don't know what you want until you see what you don't want. Oh, I like that. You like that, huh? Wasn't that great? That just rolled right out of my brain. I'll have to watch this lesson so I can remember that. Just kidding. I'm not going to watch this lesson. All right. All right. Now let's make our other cut. I always stop a little short. And that keeps this little sharp pointy part attached to the big part. Then we don't have to look for that on the ground. So what we've done here, I do have to admit this was very difficult for me to cut this out and be wasteful, because I don't like to be wasteful. But you can see what we've done is we've removed the four corners, so you can see how wasteful this was. With these four pieces, they're going to go in behind the shear. They may end up in the scrap barrel. Maybe I'll make something out of them. We'll see. But so what I want to do now is I want to show you, this is a box and pan. Now that's a regional name. A box and pan is a regional name. They may call this a finger brake in some regions. Let's take a look at our shop tool here, baby. This is our box and pan brake. These are fingers. It could be called a finger brake or a box and pan. And but what we wanted to do was we had an opportunity to go to the local high school a couple of weeks ago and demonstrate to some kids what is a sheet metal worker. And they had it was a job fair, college fair, and they just wanted to see. They asked several of the folks in town, contractors and fabricators, see if they wanted to come down and display what they do. And we did want to display, because I would like to reach some 17, 18, 19, 20, 25-year-old kids that have not decided what they want to do for a living. And I hope more of them will decide to take on a mechanical trade. I'm old. I'm gonna be just fine, but I want folks to understand AI is coming, and we have very close friends that have already lost their jobs to AI. AI is coming, and it's going to be ruthless. But if you have a mechanical skill, then you have a skill that cannot be farmed out. No matter how trick AI gets, it's going to be a while before AI can come over and put a new fan belt on your swamp cooler or do the body work on your car. So, or fix your faucet or fix your roof. So, if you can begin now to consider a trade, a mechanical trade, where you have something that cannot be, that you can never lose and it can't be farmed out and it cannot be replaced by a computer, I would sure encourage that. So, what we did at the high school is I blanked out a number of these and we let kids come over to our little box and pan break. This is JB. Matter of fact, we are introducing JB to Sheet Metal is Fun. This is Junior Bender. And so we took JB to the high school and let some of these kids make a little pan. And without exception, every kid that made a pan, when they held it in their hand, I asked them, "How does it make you feel? What are you thinking right now?" Every one of them was excited that they had made something with their own hands. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still love what I do. I do this for a living, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. Stacy and I will be tonight after this lesson. We will leave and we will drive a few hours to a job site that we'll be working at tonight. But we do this for a living, and then for a hobby, I also do this. One of the things we did is we're building ourselves a Baja. Let's take a look. I want to show you something. So I've already cut the back end of the car off, replaced it with fiberglass components. But today I made the bumper, and this is 1.5 tube. It's 120 wall. Tube is measured on the outside. Pipe is measured on the inside. So when you say 1.5 tube, that's 1.5. So this is very commonly used for ADA handrails here in America. We have friends all over the world. And if you're watching from somewhere else, this is what ADA, this is the most commonly spec'd tube. So tube is measured on the outside, pipe is measured on the inside. This is 1.5 tube. 1.5 pipe would be way bigger. And then so I made the skid plate today and got that mounted. I had a piece of 10 gauge galvanized, and just for fun, I wanted to show you that 10 gauge galvanized is the equivalent roughly of 7 sheets of 26 gauge. 26 gauge is what we're going to use on our project tonight. So this is roughly 7 of those sheets. And 1.5 tube is measured on the outside, pipe is measured on the inside, because with the pipe, you're concerned about the product that you're moving inside. It's either air, waste, it could be propane, it could be water. So when you're dealing with pipe, you're concerned about the inside because that's where your product is. With tube, we're concerned about the outside because when you're making a handrail, somebody's going to grab the outside. So I just wanted you to see that as a sheet metal shop, once you learn one discipline, let's say you learn sheet metal and you learn to think mechanically, that skill can translate over into other disciplines. So we've been in business 28 years here in Orville, and what we do today is very much different than what we did when we began. When I began IMS, I was mostly an air conditioning and heating shop, and I still am an air conditioning and heating contractor, but as the market changes, we've learned to move with the market, and we live in a small town, and I don't want to be a one-trick pony in a one-horse town. So we've learned how to adapt to what the market is requiring. So we do a lot of ADA handrails. We do metal roofing. We do air conditioning, heating. We do plumbing. Sometimes we do electrical. We do a lot of things. But what I want to encourage you is to begin to think mechanically. Think how the things around you. I want you to consider how the world around you dovetails and what part of that you could play in. All right, let's head back to JB. And one last thing about JB. That thing's cool, isn't it? We had our grandsons were here yesterday, and they helped us working on our. I'm going to teach all of our grandkids how to drive a manual transmission in the Doom buggy. So I wanted to answer a question that, as a professional, I have professional grade tools because that's what it takes to do what I do and do it at a I want to offer up the customer the best finished product that I can. But we bought this on online, and it was less than $300. So my thought is, if it's up to me, I would rather have a used piece of high quality equipment than a brand new inferior tool. However, this tool, the first time I used it, I made 9 of these. This is a beam cover. This was for a carpenter in town. This goes against the fascia, and the wooden beam comes out here, and this is a rain shield to make the water run off the top of the beam. I made 9 of these on JB, and it was $400. So we paid under $300 for this. The first job I did on it was over $400. And it came out so precise and so good that this one is not soldered, but you can see what a nice corner this makes. And when it comes to using an entry-level tool, this tool here is around, it's just over $6,000. This one was under $300. My point is, if you can never afford the $6,000 model, I would encourage you to buy the one that you can afford, because you can make a professional grade finished product on a tool like this. Now, if you made something on your $300 JB and somebody looked at it and says, boy, that looks like 10 miles of bad road. Well, that is not JB's fault. That's there's a word for that, and that word is operator failure. So in some parts of the world, that's 2 words, but right here, it's operator failure is 1 word. And so the customer can't tell how much we spent on our tool. The tool allowed us to do the job. And so at the end of the day, a tool is really the thing that gets you home to your sweetheart and gets you home, and you can make money, and you can come back tomorrow and make more money on it again if you want. But if you're a garage fabricator, a home builder, what a handy little tool. And I suggest you get the one that with removable fingers like we have here. This is a box and pan, or they may call it a finger brake. So first thing I made on here, we're already $100 in the plus. All right, let's get back to our wasteful 10 by 8 by 10 inch tall box. One of the things I want you to see about JB is you have to measure from this closest point of obstruction out to the bend line. This is 1 3/4 inches. which means the deepest pan you could make on here. Watch, if you get right there, you can go ahead and move here. I'm measuring from the obstruction down to this bend line right here. See that? Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to come over here. This is the professional grade tool. So let's start at the obstruction and come out to the bend line. This is a 6-inch. This can bend a 6-inch deep pan. And you're going to see, this is going to make sense to you in a minute whenever I show you. So we could go 6.5, but they consider this a 6-inch deep, 6-inch deep machine. So now let's say that we did bend this box up like this, and we came over here. I've got to put one more finger on this. And so what I'm doing here is I'm showing you wrong way to do it, right? So we're going to bend this up with our reading glasses and our very expensive but professional tool. Since I am a highly skilled, highly paid professional. Look at that. These are the parts of the top of a carnival. I think it's part of the snow cone machine. As many years as I've been doing what I do, I've never had the same day twice. So getting back to our this is made the difficult way demonstration. Now I have a 10-inch tall box. When I get ready to come in here to bend this up, I'm not going to be able to bend it up cleanly in the brake because this brake is only 6 inches deep. So to make these last two bends, you can see, come over on this side. Well, you know what? That's good. That's good. I just want people to see that I can clamp it on that line. That's the line I want to bend it on, but that's as far as I can go. And this brake would do the same. I would have to move the fingers around, but for demonstration purposes, let's use this one again. Remember, this is the doing it wrong demonstration. Wasteful and difficult. Sometimes we have to make it this way, but if we don't, we won't. We want this, the tab, the 1/2-inch tab to go to the outside. Anytime we're going to be in here, I want your screwdriver to always be over the bench. If this is an example of what not to do, look at this right here. Talk about what not to do. If I turn this right here and if my hand slips off, I don't have to tell you how many things can go wrong. So let's make sure it's over the bench, and I'm not even pushing down. I'm only turning. I just got this screwdriver today, hon. Look, it's got a magnetic tip on it. That feels weird. I'm putting it down here where I want it, and it's like, no.
Is it trying to stick to it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. So So I didn't say that this made it impossible. What we're concerned with is ease of fabrication. I mean, gracious, half the stuff we do here is impossible. As a matter of fact, the difficult we do right away, the impossible just takes a little longer. But so now you can see we were able to do it, but that was not the easiest way to make this. And plus, now we have to finish this corner. This would be riveted or it could be soldered. If you have a spot welder, it could be spot welded, but then we still have this corner. And when we're looking at corners, I want you to look really close at this corner that we still have to finish, or this corner that's nice and round and it's finished. As soon as we bend it, it's a finished corner. I'm going to show you. This is the coffin lock, but I'm going to show you that. Even the coffin lock, look at that. What a nice finish that is. Did you get that? Did I move it too fast? So this is possible, but it wasn't easy. But I do have one more question for you. This box is 10 inches deep. That 10 inches had a big impact on how we were going to make it. Because the box is so deep, we had to consider how we would fabricate it. But look at this. What if this was only 1 inch deep, like our lid? Our lid is made just the way we just bent this up. But the difference was, this is 10 inches tall, and it made it difficult to bend, and it gave us 10 inches of seam. So 10 times 4, that gives us 40 inches of seam that we had to make up and clean and make sure that it wasn't going to come apart or cut the customer. But if this would have been 1 inch deep, that is how we would have made it, because that is how we made our lid. So what changed everything here was the depth of the box. The depth of the box is what gave us these large pieces of waste. If this box was only 1 inch deep, then there's only a 1 inch square piece of waste. So just something to think about. We want to make sure we give the customer our best, make sure that we can make it, and make it with the least amount of waste. Because waste is metal that we paid for, cut it out, and then put it right in the trash. So now that we've gone through the wrong way to do it, let's do it the right way. All right. All of that just to show you the wrong way to make something. Where else are you going to get that? So this style that we're going to do is called the wrapper style, because it's going to wrap around. So what we have here is our 10 by 8 by 10 by 8 box. This is our 10, 8, 10, 8, finishing back here on our coffin lock. So because it was 10 by 8 and another 10 and another 8, I blanked out that piece when you guys weren't looking. And look at this. Here's our 8, our 10, our 8, and our 10. One of the things we want to do anytime we're making a wrapper style duct, always double check yourself. Especially, well, only, not especially, only when the sides are dissimilar. We have a 10 by 8. If this was a 10 by 10 or an 8 by 8, this wouldn't be a factor. But one of the things, once we've decided that our piece is 37.5 by 11, when we go to lay this out and we start here and we make this mark, what we have to be careful is that we don't put an 8 and an 8 and a 10 and a 10 or any combination, because then we could end up with something that's going to go straight in the trash can. And if you work for somebody, they don't like that. They really hate that. I always hate it. And so while we're laying this out, I'm going to go 8, and then I'm going to make sure. So since this was 8 plus a half, we have a 1/2 inch seam here. Our first mark was at 8.5. Now this is easy because our first mark was at 8.5. I'm going to add 10 to that. That's going to give us 18.5, and I'm going to make a mark at 18.5. Now what I'm going to do is come back to this side, and since this one was 8, this one has to be the opposite. So this is going to be a 10, but I have a 1-inch coffin lock on here. So I'm going to mark this at 11, which is a 10-inch box plus our 1-inch coffin lock. That's how that's 11. And then I'm always going to double check myself. What do I have left? I have an 8 left. So now I have 8, 10, 8, 10. To say that we live and die by the tape measure, unfortunately, it's pretty true. If you just rush right through this, and I went 10, 10, 8, 8, that goes in the trash. Any combination that is not 8, 10, 8, 10, any other combination is all trash. So now I've got the notches drawn here, and we always want to make the most representative drawing that we can. Notice that the 10-inch in my drawing is visibly wider than the 8, and the 8 is smaller than the 10s on either side. When you make your drawing, give yourself the best opportunity for success. If all you do is use a blank, a bunch of squares, and you write in different numbers, you're going to set yourself up for failure. All right, so here we go. Let's get this notch in here. When Stacy and I began this adventure, I thought folks might watch the series in order. And by watching it in order, they would follow along. And once I introduced a cautionary tale, then they would transfer that into their project. But I found that is not the case. Sometimes you stop by, you watch one lesson, and then you move along, and that's fine. We appreciate you stopping by. So for those that watch all the time, you're going to get tired of hearing me talk about safety, but we're going to try to mention it every time. So whenever you're notching, I'm going to notch this side first, putting the end of my snips at the notch. Ooh, I like that. So now on my next notch, I want to cover the piece. This is going to be the drop. I want to cover it so that whenever I finish that cut, it's going to go down because my snip is covering it. Now that I've shown you the right way, let's do one the wrong way. We're going to go bada boom. Now, this is wrong. This is wrong because now, when I finish my cut, if I can see this piece in its entirety, then when I finish the cut, there's a possibility that it could come up toward my eyes. So just as just a precaution, I'm going to put my thumb over the top of it so it cannot do that. But you can see, if you see the whole piece, it can see your eye, and we don't want the two to meet. So let's do it again on one. That one didn't look that intimidating, but watch this. Let's do one of these. Now, look at this. I'm doing this wrong as an example. I can see the entire piece that's going to drop out. So I'm going to put my thumb over it when I finish my cut. So you can imagine if this piece were to come toward your face, that's a pretty unwelcome visitor. So let's go back to doing it right. We're going to go this side first, and then we're going to cover the piece with our snip. And if we're covering it, it only has one place to go, and that's down. So pay attention how you're notching. I like to do my notching in the shop with yellow snips. Yellow snips cut straight. All right. So now this is, let's put wrapper on there because I really want that part to sink in. I think my pen is running out of enthusiasm and ink at the same time. So we're making this out of bonderized. This type of metal, it's pre-primered, it's electro-galvanized, so it's pre-primered and ready for paint. But one of the things I like about it is it gives you guys a chance. I'm just going to kind of move this around because I want you to be able to see the line, see the scribe line. It shows up better, the bright scribe line shows up better against the flat finish of the bonderized. It also goes by jet coat or paint lock, and these are all proprietary brand names. So we're going to go there. Bottom, one of the things I want to point out on the bottom, here's a drawing of what we're making. X is always you. X is always the sheet metal person. So this bend is up toward X, up toward X, up toward X, up toward X. Let's do it wrong here. If I put that X here, now I have a bend up toward X, a bend up toward X, and I have two bends that go away from X. That's not what we want. We want them all four to be coming up the same way. We're making the bottom. We're making the bottom of our box. We're making the bottom. Now, since our bottom is going to be made inside of a hemmed bottom like this, then we are going to notch these corners at a 45. Now, we're back to notching again, so we have to make sure that we cover the drop. And we can notch those at a 45 because it's going to be at the bottom. So I'm going to notch these two at a 90. Just as an example of what can be done. Sometimes we need to notch at a 90. But let's watch this. So if we did over here to JB, we're going to line this up on the mark. I think my hands are in your way, aren't they, baby?
Oh, I can see.
All right. We're going to bend that up. When this bending leaf is flat like a table, that's when this is a 90-degree bend. I'm going to do this way because I'm demonstrating Excuse me, I'm demonstrating here. I don't know what that means. It just means I'm demonstrating. So we have two corners that are notched at 90 degrees and two corners that are notched at 45. So the nice thing about the 45 notch is we don't need a box and pan to finish the piece, because this piece could be solid all the way across. But look, since we notched this at 45, when we go to make this last bend, bam, see that? Pow, zoom, 45, and it's a 90. And we were able to do that because we notched it at a 45. So let's show you this one is notched at 90. Now, when I go to bend it up, oh boy, now we're 10 miles from home and walking, right? See what we've got? We have a conflict right here. So we're not going to do that. But we have an 8-inch finger over here that is, oh, that's right, I made this small. I made this one small. I made it small because it fits on the inside. All right, hang on here. All right, don't go away. This, did you see what I just did right there? Since this is the bottom and this corner is going to get covered anyway, we have a little wiggle room. And this is only 7 7/8, and this finger is 8 inches. So I wasn't able to show you the real square corner like I wanted to. But now, watch this. Let's pretend that I didn't do this over here for right now. Now, can you see right down there? Since we notched it in 90 degree, you get a really nice corner. But from what we're doing, we didn't need a really nice corner. But since I boogered this up, as long as nobody's watching, look at this. Oh my gosh. Bada boom, look at that. I almost hit that with my seamers. So, if this if this would have been 8 inches, I could have shown you the beauty of the 45 notch and the 90 notch, but I think you guys got it anyway. But this is real life, and so you saw how the 90 notch comes around, and you saw how the 45 notch comes around. So there are times when if we can get away with the 45 notch, that's the right way to do it. So let's go to our lid. So now the lid is going to be similar to the box that we made, the one that we made the wrong way. So here we go. Let's cut this out. The lid is the size of the box, so let's just see. This should be around 10 1/4. That's 10 1/4 because our lid has to go on the outside of our box. It has to go on the outside, so it has to be a little bigger than the box. But also the lid, if we look really careful, the lid has a hem turned to the inside. So not only did we lose area right here because our hem is turned to the inside, we also have to go on the outside. So that's the reason why it takes 10 1/4 to go over the outside of a 10-inch box. because we had to make room for the hem around the inside. If this hem would have been turned to the outside, we wouldn't have had to make that consideration. But then we would have a hem, an exposed hem, all the way around the perimeter. And what would our neighbors say? Right? All right, here we go. And really, we really are concerned about what our neighbors say. Just like we did on the big one. Leave that little tab on there. Sometimes I have to wiggle. I'm willing to wiggle the drop, because if you wiggle it, that means you haven't gone too far. Sometimes if the piece just drops out, that means we may have made an overcut going in either direction, and we don't want an overcut. We want a right-on sweet cut. That's what we got here. A right-on sweet cut. All right. And we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get those in the trash can right away. Stop a little short. Leave that piece attached. Let's put these right over here where they belong. See you later. Thanks for coming. Now, we're going to finish notching our notch. I'm going to put my thumb over this because, as you can tell, I'm going the wrong way. But look, thumb over it fixes everything. This one, right way. Good. Good. So we could, if it really got to concerning us, on this one that I'm cutting the wrong way, yellows cut like reds. So yellow and red both cut the same way. We could, when we talk about our notch, we talked about covering this little piece with our snip when we cut it out. We could come over here with our greens. Look at that, green snips covers that little tiny pyramid of pane there, right? Reds and yellows cut the same way. With yellow, if I cut that, that's bad. It doesn't hurt to use a snip upside down. If this is more comfortable for you, you can do it. But look at this. With the green snip. So, back to this one. Yellow, which cuts the same as red. The drop off is covered by the snip. Look at that. That thing's beautiful. All right. I'm going to take this, since this is longer than JB, I'm going to take this over to the 10-foot break. All I'm going to do is fold a hem here and fold a hem here, which, if you look at our drawing, I have a 1/2 inch hem up. That's right here. I'm up toward X. I have an open hem up, also up toward X. Let me go bend that real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, here we are at the 10-footer. So this is what a professional would have. Now you probably aren't going to have a 10-foot break, because if you're really lucky, you got a JB, you got a 2-footer. So what we could have done, this piece is 37.5 inches long. We could have made it in 2 sections, and then you could have bent it up on JB. But we got this cool tool right here. Let's go ahead and use it. So you can look back on some of our other lessons at a tool tray or some of the other lessons. If you don't have a big break like this, I'm going to push this in there. I'm going to flatten that down as a hem. So what I've done is I hemmed this over, and the bottom one is an open hem. Open hem. All right, let's go back to JB. All right, here we are back at JB. We went over to the big bender and we bent this up over there just because we can. If you don't have a 10-foot professional grade brake, we could have made this in two 10 by 8 sections, and we would have just had 2 coffin locks. It's also a very good way to do it. That isn't going to hurt anything. All right, so let's bend up our coffin lock. The first thing I do on a coffin lock is I always bend the 1-inch allowance. Okay. There we are. This is our 1-inch allowance for our coffin lock. Here we go. We're going to bend this up 90. Now, we got to move JB out to the edge. Still nice and secure. Now that I've bent up our entire allowance for our coffin lock, which was 1 inch, the front bending leaf here on JB, just like the big brake, is a 1/2 inch. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to have to flatten some of this out right here, just so we can get it in where we want. All right, look at that. Man, that's pretty. So you can see what we've done is we pushed this tight to the front of the bending leaf, tight over here, which means this is a 1/2 inch. So we're going to bend this over till it stops. That's 135 degrees, which is just 90 plus 45. See what we've got there so far? Yeah? All right, now let's put this back in here. Add a little bit more. There we go. I like that. Now you're going to take your small, oh, it's right here in our tool tray. Rubber mallet, and you're going to tap this down. Every strike you want to overlap about half of the face of the mallet. So you don't hit it here and there and there. Overlap half the mallet. So if that's 1.5 inches, we're moving 3/4 of an inch every strike. I like that. Now let's take this out. So I just want you to get a good look about what's going on there. You got everything? Mm-hmm. Now we're going to finish off the coffin lock by flattening it out. I'm going to move. Hey, hold still, JB. Come on now. Settle down. You got fast reflexes, baby. All right. Smash it down real nice. All right. Come on in here and get a look about what we just did. So now we've gone over 1/2, and then we've come back 1/2. Now we're going to make the other half of the coffin lock which is pretty easy because it's just a 1/2 inch 90. 1/2 inch 90. Here we go. Sweet. Now, as we pull this out, let's just go ahead and bend up our box. I'm a little less here. That's okay. We'll be able to fold this up with our hands. What I want to make sure is that we don't go too far. If we try too hard, this will put a back break where the front of the bending leaf is, and it'll put a crease down this side of our project. We don't want that. So you can see that's not quite 90. That's going to be perfect. Whatever that angle is, it's exactly the one I was hoping for. All right, here we go. Same thing. Last one. "90 degrees or close." So all these metals that we use, all of them have a memory. So once we have a nice crease in here, it isn't going to be hard to go ahead and bring that around to a 90. That one's pretty close already. And this way, if we do it by hand, then we're not going to get a crease down the front. All right, so now let's look at our coffin lock. Our coffin lock comes up and then down a 1/2, and then it returns up a 1/2. Can you see that right there? Mm-hmm. This side has a 1/2 inch turn down. What's going to happen is that 1/2 inch turn down is going to go right into that recess that we folded. So then look what a nice seam we have. It's got a hem all the way around. So earlier when we talked about making the box the wrong way, each one of these corners was going to have to be riveted or soldered or spot welded or finished in some way. But these are all bends. This coffin lock is real nice. That's going to take a rivet on the top and one on the bottom so it doesn't come apart. Look at that. You got nice corners. I just wanted to make sure. Can you guys see how that goes together? Let me know whenever you're right there. Mm-hmm. Look at that. All right, coffin lock. So I want to do a little bit of a notch in this corner, so all right, so we left this hem open. Can you see that's an open hem? This is a flat hem. All right, let's go ahead and put that coffin lock together one more time. I like that. So on the side that has, on the corner that has our coffin lock, can you see right down here? Maybe I can, I'll put my finger right here. See that? We need to create a little bit of space so we know our coffin lock is a 1/2 inch. So since we have one of these with a 45, we know that that's going to take a 1/2 inch. Cover it, right? Cover it so it doesn't come up. So now I've taken a little bit out of this corner. And that's going to match, it's going to line up with that corner down there. Wouldn't that be funny if it didn't fit? Okay, so what I think if you watch from this end, this is probably the better end. So here's our 1/2 inch flange. Here's our 1/2 inch open hem. I had to notch it a little bit. This corner's notched a little bit for the coffin lock. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Oh, boy. See how this is coming together right here? See that? How that came together? Man, I don't think I could like that any more than that, baby. So now we've pushed the bottom in from the top. This gives us a real nice finish on the inside. So now we left this open because imagine if we tried to push this. Let's go ahead and look at that. Imagine what a dogfight it would be to try to get this flange under that tight, that closed hem. You see how much fight that would be? That would be a fight all the way. So we want the top end hem to be flat and the bottom one to be open, because whenever we put it in, we're going to put the bottom in one more time. You can see here's our corner with the square corner. That fits nice. That one's with the square corner. That fits nice. But look, no, I didn't want to show you that one. Yeah, that is the one I want to show. This is the one that's notched 45. Once it's in place and we flatten this down, you can't tell that we notched at 45 and made it easy on ourselves. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to JB. And we're not going to do that one over there. Now that we've made this, we're going to flatten the hem. And then we're going to turn it and flatten this one. So if we would have flattened it first, that was going to make it very hard to assemble. I think what I'm going to do, hon, is once I get a couple of these flattened out, I'm going to make sure that everybody can see what's happening here. What I'm doing is I'm flattening that hem out now. So here's the last one. You can see it's open. You know what? Let's do, just for fun, just so folks can see what's happening here, I'm going to do it with my hand seamers. Hand seamers, tongs. These are another one of those tools that can have regional names, regional titles. They call them duck bills in some parts. Hand seamers is what I grew up with. And so what I'm being careful of here with my hand seamers is that I'm not scarring the exterior of the box. I want to make sure that I'm holding it flat to flat. I don't want to grab it like this, because this could put a crease here, which will show up in the front. So now you can see our bottom came in. We left the hem open, then we pushed the bottom in. And now, let's go ahead and lock that bottom in place. I'm going to put a vice grip on here, but I don't want to grab it too hard. Again, we want to be cautious about the face. Alright. Man, that looks great. I'm just going to make sure that I'm tight in this corner. I'm going to hit it down with my hammer handle. Good there. And this thing is so pretty, we might as well go ahead and mark where our holes are going to be.
And what was that measurement? Just for
2 inches.
okay.
Good question. Two inches. That was just a nice even number. So we know that all these dimensions are half. Just to be not that one. This one. This is a scribe we made in an earlier lesson. I think, what was this one called?
Grab bag of tools.
Grab bag of tools. So we're going to take this scribe at 1/4 of an inch. And since that's a 1/2 inch hem, we know that 1/4 is somewhere near the middle. So let's drill that hole. Keep yourself in a good safe spot. I'm using a lot of pressure. Whenever you're drilling, you always want to use the most pressure that you can sensibly put in. Look at that. Whenever we put the tool holders on this next lesson, we're going to include a pop rivet lesson in that, how pop rivets work. So low RPM, high pressure, and your drill bits will last longer. Whenever you use low pressure and high RPM, the drill bit gets hot due to the friction, and it actually dulls the drill bit. So as much pressure as you can reasonably use. That one seems like it's a little high. I'm going to tap that down a little bit just to make sure that the bottom is fully seated. And it doesn't. There we go. Now let's go back to that 2-inch dimension. We use these markers. It's a water-based marker, so after we mark them, we can wipe it off with water so we don't have to worry about these. This is permanent marker, but I've done that for your benefit so you can see what we're making. So there's our 1/4 and our 1/4. Our bottom is seated in the wrapper. Low RPM, high pressure. Same thing here. Since we have it clamped, we can go ahead and drill both holes. If this wasn't clamped and I didn't believe that it was secure, I would not drill 2 holes. I would drill 1 hole and I would put a rivet in it, and then I would drill the second hole. But since we're clamped and it's very secure, we're going to go ahead and drill both holes. But if it wasn't secure, we would drill one, put the rivet in, and then drill the other. Because sometimes if you just drill a series of holes without attaching some of the rivets, the material will walk, the bottom may move, and then when you go back to put the rivets into all the holes you drilled, not going to go in. So sometimes you want to drill a hole, put in the rivet, drill a hole, put in the rivet. So now we're going to come over here. So our coffin lock is going to be the next thing we finish up. Let's see, where did we put that? Okay. We're going to put this coffin lock. Our lid is 1 inch. So let's put this first rivet 1.25 inches. And then the rivet will be down and not in the way of the lid when we go to put the lid on. Now, here's our 1/4. Because the coffin lock is 1/2 and 1/2, and then it has a 1/2 inch flange into it. We've come down 1.25 inches. We've clamped it so it's nice and secure. We're drilling through 4 thicknesses here, so it takes a little bit of time to get through. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and put one in the bottom as well. Look at that, 1/4 by 1/4. So this is going to lock the rest of the coffin lock in on the wrapper. Again, we're drilling 4 thicknesses here, so it's going to take a moment. Put this rivet in. Now with that rivet in, that makes sure that our coffin lock cannot go in anymore. And with these rivets in place, it can't come apart. So look at that. Isn't that nice? There's our bottom. You can see where we notched for clearance around the coffin lock. All right. Let's come over here. That's going to make our lid now. We're going to do a 1/2 inch hem. Want to make sure that we cover it right there. And we're going to bend the other short one up next. Well, I'm bending the short ones first because the piece will be a little bit shorter this way. It'll be 1 inch shorter. And then it'll be easier to bend the other ones. So let's go ahead and finish off. See that hem is still a little bit open. got fast feet, baby. Fast feet. All right, now let's bend our last one up. Now that we bent the two short sides, this one got a little more manageable. I think I'm going to go that far, and then we'll finish it. We'll turn it around to finish it. Let's get our last hem in here. Now let's flatten that out. And the last one. Now we've hemmed all four sides down. Now I always put the tab on the long side. Oh, you know what? That's going to be... I'm going to need to move this over, because now with those tabs, it's going to be longer than 10. So let's move this over. Add in one of our other fingers. Bring that down. I just want to make sure that that's tight. That's tight up there. I like it. I love it. You already know what I'm going to say. I want some more of it. All right. Now we just added in a 2-inch finger. Now we have 12-inch. So that's going to make it long enough that we can bend our lid. If you watched our tool tray video, the video where we made this tool tray, we made that tool tray using some very primitive and basic tools. If you don't have your own JB, you could do everything that we've done here. You could do it in the same way that we made the tool tray. We've had lots of folks look at that one. Sometimes I wonder how many tool trays are out there in the world as a result of somebody watching our video. Isn't that something? So now I've bent these up, and these tabs went up, because I always put the tab on the long side, if it's up to me. If it's up to me, that's how I do it. So let's go over here. Let's get our screwdriver. I'm going to use a small screwdriver. Now, what I want to do is I want to open up this hem. I don't want to push. All I want to do is I just want to twist. No pushing. If you look at this whole area, you don't have to use much imagination to wonder if you're pushing. If you're trying to open it up just by pushing, you can see there's a lot of things that could go wrong. But all we're going to do, set the screwdriver in place, and we're just going to rotate it. No pushing. Just turning. Now, we want to make sure on our lid, we want these tabs to come to the inside. So let's go over that again. Is this the right way to do it? Hon, what do you think?
No.
Boo, boo, boo. Okay. Rah, rah. So all I'm going to do is give this a little twist, because all I want to do is make sure that this tab goes to the inside of the lid. So we're over the bench. We're not out here. Bad. Good. We're just going to twist. Bad. Good. Oh, look at that. You see that? Look at that. Went right into that plywood and I didn't feel a thing. What about this? If I did this, super bad. Don't do this. Do this. So I'm just turning. All I want to do is convince this tab to go to the inside of the lid. And so now we've opened up the hem. And now, let's see. Oh, baby, I got a good feeling about this. I got a good feeling about this. Look at that. Look at that. All right, boys and girls. The reason that this is working is because the lid is bigger than the box. The box is 8-inch, but the lid is a little bigger, so it fits. Now, we want to make sure that this tab goes into that hem right there, right? So I'm just going to hold this right here. Can you see what's happening right there? Yeah, that's what's happening. And that went so good. Coming back for a repeat performance. All right, here we go. What we're watching is to make sure this tab goes inside the lid and into the hem. You see, are you looking at this one, hon?
Can you see both?
You can see both? Look at that. Ooh. Good heavens, that was beautiful. So now our tab went into the hem. I'm going to clamp this with a very light amount of pressure, and let's just tap that down. All right, anybody that doesn't love that can leave the party right now. They can take their dessert with them. All right. So these are very light strikes. I'm not hitting it hard. We're not trying to bend anything. We're just trying to move something. We just want to move those two pieces together. All right. This lesson has so much good information in it that what we're going to do is when we come back on our next lesson and we make the tool holders to put on our box, we're going to do a soldering lesson. We're going to solder these corners. But tonight, we're going to put the coffin lock in the back. Oh, look at that. Good heavens. We got a little bit of wiggle room here because what we're going to do is put the hinge on. Let's cut this hinge. I've already got it marked. I've got it at about 9 7/8. That thing's sweet, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's cut our hinge. If you're using a hacksaw, you only cut on the push. Whenever you return, you have to make sure you lift and only cut on the push, unless you're holding the hacksaw. If you don't like holding the handle, you like holding it awkwardly.
Storage.
If you like, we still good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and finish this up. Only cutting on the push. All right. So now, let's take our file. File that sharp burr off. File is the same thing as a hacksaw. It only cuts on the push. I could have clamped this in the vise. Probably would have looked way more professional, but hey. Our pin has slightly rolled out, so let's just see if we can get that pin back where we want it. Oh, I got a good feeling about that. Okay, so one of the reasons we made our lid oversized this way, we're going to put the coffin lock in the back, is because our hinge is going to ride right up underneath there. Just like magic. Man. You know what, hon? Do you think we make it look too easy? You think everybody's going to think this isn't even real? Why does everything always go so good? Yeah, that is so smooth. So, we're going to give this a little bit of love. A little bit of love. And then I'm going to give this lid a little bit of love. Now, on our next lesson, we're going to solder these corners. But tonight I want to just get the hinge on here. So we're going to thin out this hem a little bit. And that hinge is going to go on there. The reason I like putting on the hinge this way is because the hinge, we get to hide half of it. That's always nice. I like that look better than this. Also, this, we get to push the edge of the lid up against the pin of the hinge. So we know we've got a real, so our placement is just right. If we put it on the top, there's a chance we could put the hinge on crooked. Right? Friends and neighbors. Remember, we're back in that thing again. You give this thing to your friends for their birthday, and they bring it back and go, that hinge just looks crooked. You know what? I don't know. I think I'm going to booger that up with that. So if we go down here to our secret stash of C-clamps. That's going to go there and there. Ooh, I sure like that. And that. Man, do you think... You think there's any way we can get lucky enough to get everything that we want to get in here? Let's see. I want to go right here. I'm going to get through these first two thicknesses. Now, we always have to worry about where our body is, and we got to make sure we stay in a safe place. So let's pull this out a little bit. It doesn't matter if it takes a little bit more time. What matters is we don't drill a hole in our finger. It sounds great. It sounds exciting. It's not. I've done it. Don't do it. So I'm going to push. Keep myself out of harm's way here. Let's see if we can pull this off. Oh boy. Look at that. I'm going to load the pop riveter up. Have it ready for this next one. Pop riveter's loaded. We're ready. Oh, I like that. We're going to put one more right in the middle. So let's find the middle. 10 1/4. Half at 10 1/4 is 5 1/8. Now, let's make this last hole here. Okay, I haven't got to be honest. Oh, that's weird. I probably should have offset it over one way or the other. I actually hit the pre-drilled hole in the hinge.
That never happened.
Never happens. Happened right here. All right, so now I'm going to put in my earplugs, and I'm going to tap these pop rivets down a little bit just to flatten them out, give us a better chance at success. Dolly. All right, here we go. Dang, that's pretty. Also pretty. I feel pretty. So I flattened out the rivets so they wouldn't interfere with our box. Let's go back to our box. Let's put the coffin lock in the back. And, oh, I see. It's still catching on the rivet there. On the last one, I used solder right there, and the solder came out a little flatter than the rivet. All right. See if we can flatten that thing out a little bit more. Coffin lock in the back. Hold that hinge down. Just for fun, let's make sure we're good on both sides. I'm just going to mark this. And then if I start busy and I think I want to drill it there, I'll know better. Let's go ahead and use this pre-drilled hole. I like that. Pre-drilled hole in the middle. All right. When we come back on the next lesson, we're going to solder this lid. So we'll be able to close that corner up. But I think what I want to do tonight, should we go ahead and put the latch on it, hon? Let's call it good right here. So what we're going to do, there was a lot we packed into this, and I didn't want to leave anything out. So there is our 10-inch by 8-inch recessed bottom, 10-inch tall box with a 1-inch lid, the hinge on the back, coffin lock. So when we come back on our next lesson, we're going to add the latch, we're going to make a handle, and we're going to make the tool holders. But for tonight, you guys have been awesome. I know this has been a long one, but come on, I didn't want to leave anything out. So that's it. That's it. We're going to solder it next time, put the tool holders on. Yeah, that's everything. We're going to go take a nap before we go to work tonight. So thanks for coming. We appreciate it. We call this the gardener's helper, but it could be a box for any use at all. And one thing I got to say is a lot of the stuff we make, you could buy it. But we're not the home shopping channel. we're not here to tell you what you can buy. You already know what's available. You know what's out there. What we want to do is I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you to think mechanically. And if you make this box, every time you look at it for the next, you saw the organizer bins that I made over 40 years ago. Every time you look at this, you're going to think about, I made that. I didn't buy it. I made it. I know how it goes together. I know what it took to make it. And you're going to have a different appreciation for things that are made. And you're going to also feel a sense of accomplishment. That's two great things. And along those lines, thank you so much for coming. We sure appreciate it. Come back next time if you want. And we're going to add tool holders. We're going to turn that into this. If you want to see this, come on back next time. Thanks for coming. Sheet metal is fun. We appreciate you stopping by. Thank you.